Welcome to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. And now your host, Tim Johnson.
Since 1959, the Louisiana Chemical Association has promoted, protected, and defended the industry's right to do business in our state. We'll visit with Greg Bowser, President and CEO of the Louisiana Chemical Association, when we return on this edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Louisiana businesses, by partnering with your local community and technical college foundation, you're guaranteed a skilled, highly competent workforce, homegrown talent, trained specifically to meet your needs, whatever those needs are. Visit this website to learn more about how to partner with your local Louisiana Community and Technical College Foundation. To better prepare for tomorrow, become a partner today.
Louisiana has over 26,000 licensed companies that do business legally and meet the needs of our state. Before selecting a contractor, check references and verify the license at lacontractor.org. It's your money. Make wise decisions and protect yourself from being scammed.
Today we're in Lafourche Parish, Louisiana, where we're building terraces along the hurricane levee system. These terraces will provide shoreline protection in the marsh, which will protect homes and businesses in South Louisiana.
So our terracing projects is a great partnership with industry to prove that we can help the environment and protect our levee system. Without investments from the industry and companies like Chevron, projects like this would not be possible.
In Louisiana, oil and gas and the community are all connected.
Industry partners help Ducks Unlimited do what we do best: protect South Louisiana.
Protect yourself from the headaches of dealing with a non-licensed contractor. Go to lacontractor.org and make sure the person or company who wants to work for you is licensed by the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors. It's your money. Make wise decisions and protect yourself.
For 8 seconds in the arena before an afternoon in the field. For a promise to students that honors success in the classroom. For championships earned on the bayou. For innovators committed to reclaiming our coastline. The universities of Louisiana. For your future. For our future.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Greg Bowser, President and CEO of the Louisiana Chemical Association, is my guest. My friend, welcome back.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for having me. It's always good to come and visit and talk about things, and we appreciate being here.
Got a lot to talk about today, too, don't we? Pandemic, unrest in Ukraine, a lot of things going on globally that can have an impact on the energy industry in general and the chemical industry specifically. So we'll get into that a little bit. But let's set the stage, Greg, with kind of an overview of the state of the industry in the United States and specifically in Louisiana.
Yeah. Well, you talk about Louisiana. We've been very blessed in that we have not had issues with a number of our employees coming down with the pandemic, and that's a credit to our members. They went to great lengths to make sure that the people were protected and to do all that. So we didn't have that happen to us. What is happening now is you have supply chain issues where you can't get goods in, you can't get things out, especially when you start talking about things as simple as shipping in containers. A perfect example of what's happened is that if you have a container shipment that, say, it cost you $1,500 to $2,500 to ship it from here to wherever before the pandemic. Now that same container is 5 times the cost just to ship it there. Okay, and then the other problem is, can you get it back? And so we're seeing those kinds of things pop up, and we're dealing with them and trying to work through them, and hopefully we can do that.
In terms of employment in our state, and if you think about the critical nature of the industry, the chemical industry, in terms of our overall economy, 27,000 plus employees. You think about, I think I read where the LCA represents 63 to 65 companies on 100 individual sites around Louisiana. Huge direct economic impact, but also a huge multiplier effect. Talk about that overall impact on communities where these facilities operate and specifically on the state in general.
Well, it's a big driver of the state's economy. I mean, you have 27,000 direct employees, you use a multiplier effect of anywhere from 5 to 7, whatever you want to choose. That's huge.
Yeah.
And then you look at our supplier community, for example. We have an organization called the Louisiana Chemical Industry Alliance. That organization is made up of businesses that do business with the chemical industry. We've got somewhere in the neighborhood of about 800 to 850 members. from small people to large companies. And so that's the impact we have. And when you look at communities, you've got a plant that's driving an economy like that. That's huge. I'll give you an example. We had a company that a couple of years ago decided that they were going to shut down one of their operations. The cost, the direct cost to that community was $26 million.
Right.
I mean, that's just one. So that's the kind of impact it has.
Right. And if you think about it, and I think I know the specific site that you're talking about, that was a smaller site in a smaller community. So you think about some of these larger sites and how significant that would be. You mentioned that multiplier effect. If you think about 27,000 direct jobs, you consider the multiplier at the low end. We're talking about 100,000 Louisiana residents who make their living as a direct result of this industry being here. That's one of the largest, if not the largest employer in our state. And it's providing not only those 27,000 jobs, those another 75 to 100,000 in spinoff jobs, but these are great wages. These are great benefits. These are great involved employees in their communities. They coach the baseball teams. They buy the cars at the local auto. I mean, the role in our economy is just tremendous.
It is tremendous. And you talk about we talked about the coronavirus and what it did in communities. Just think about what the big problem was. If you had access to health care, right, it changed the way the virus treated you. And when you're talking about a job in the chemical industry, it's not only a high paying job, it gives you a retirement benefit, but it also gives you health insurance.
Right.
And so you have access to good health care. And that's the one thing I think that really helped us as an industry with our employees, that they had access to health care, they had access to testing, they had access to those things early on in the pandemic.
Right.
And so that makes a difference, and it makes a big difference in people's lives.
And when you think about the pandemic, Greg, I want to talk more specifically about the products that the industry produces and how they improve our quality of life on a daily basis. But just in the pandemic, if you think about the plastic producers, the methyl methacrylate producers, you think about the plexiglass shields that we've seen in all of our businesses now that protect employees and protect the customers. And you think about the medicines and all of the different things that this industry produces in Louisiana. It has played a major role in helping us weather the storm of the pandemic just from a product standpoint. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we were blessed that a lot of the stuff we make helps people to protect themselves against the virus, against the spread, against all kinds of diseases. And it helps in medication. It helps in a lot of things that people don't really understand right off. The other thing that it does, and I think we have to do as companies, is it gives you a chance to uplift whole communities. I mean, you want to talk about somebody's lifestyle changing. I mean, get a job where you have, you're making $80,000 to $90,000 a year, and you have health insurance, not only for yourself, but for your wife
family.
And your family. And so that makes a big difference in people's lives.
It is absolutely life-altering in terms of the careers that it provides to individuals. Let's talk briefly in the minute that we've got left in this segment, Greg, about growth. We crossed a point at some time in the last few years where the chemical industry employment in our state actually surpassed the employment that we get from oil and gas exploration and production. That was sort of a Rubicon for the state. But there are real opportunities for growth now. About 30 seconds on what you see on the horizon in terms of growth of the industry in our state.
Oh, I think that we have great opportunity to expand our industry. We have great opportunity to change the culture of what people normally think of a chemical plant, because it's changing. The products we make are changing. And so it's going to change. The footprint's going to get bigger, I believe, because these things that we do are going to be made somewhere. And it might as well be made here, because a lot of it goes in the convenience of our lives. And as Louisianians, as Americans, we're not ready to give up those conveniences, let alone give up the necessary stuff that we produce. So that's all going to go into it.
I want to take a break. We'll come back. I want to dive into that a little bit, because with unrest in other parts of the world, domestic production of these products becomes even more important. We're visiting with Greg Bowser. He's the president and CEO of the Louisiana Chemical Association. You're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
With over 50,000 students in higher education in the capital region, finding a great intern or employee shouldn't be complicated. The Baton Rouge Area Chamber is teaming up with local colleges and universities to help businesses find their next hire using Handshake. the largest early talent recruiting platform connecting employers, talent, and colleges all in one place. Learn more at brac.org/handshake.
The LCTCS Foundation advocates for every Louisiana community and technical college in the system to keep them on the cutting edge of training and technology. Aligned with businesses across the state, they ensure students develop the highest possible level of skills, keeping Louisiana business and industry ahead of the pack. Visit this website to support the LCTCS Foundation for a higher Louisiana for all.
Plants would not be operating if they weren't operating under the regulations to keep everybody safe and keep the environment safe.
It also goes back to the end products that our raw materials go into.
Solar panels,
windmills,
reusable bottles. Primary product is acrylonitrile, which is used to make carbon fiber.
Carbon fiber in an airplane is used to make it lighter.
By reducing weight, we indirectly help the environment because it uses less fuel. And for us to make products that help reduce carbon footprint, it's a big deal.
So, how can I help you today?
Maybe you're looking for a bigger home. Maybe you have plans to grow your business. Or maybe all your plans have just changed. For the better. Whether you're planning for the future or just looking for a bank that cares about you. If you have a goal, let's make it happen.
This is what you're looking for.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Greg Bowser of the LCA is our guest. Greg, we ended the last segment talking a little bit about products. And one of the things that has taken place as a result of the pandemic, and now we see unrest in places like the Ukraine, is domestic production of these critically important products that come from your industry has become even more important. It's become a national security issue in a lot of respects. I know some of the clients that I work with in the industry have reported to me that the federal government has even reached out to them and said, there are some critical things that we need to have supplies of in terms of PPE and things that we might want to have on hand for future pandemics that are mostly made in other places around the world that may not be so friendly to us. We'd like to talk to you about maybe manufacturing those products here. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of that. While there has been a push by some in the environmental community to push away from domestic production, as it rises to the level of a national security issue, it really changes the game. I know you're seeing that as well.
We're seeing a lot of it. It has changed the game. And one of the things that we've learned, for example, look at the automobile industry. When overseas you couldn't get a microchip in,
right,
all of a sudden you couldn't buy a car. The U.S. didn't have any automobiles, and all those chips were made overseas. And so now, even in that industry, they're talking about, wait a minute, we need domestic production. Manufacturing is going to be important.
Right.
And manufacturing for us domestically is going to be important. I think it's going to rise. It's going to rise to the top of everybody's list. We're going to need to do things domestically. You mentioned the environmental impact of it. Our guys are environmentally conscious. Everybody talks about climate change and greenhouse gas reductions. That's going to happen. It's happening now. And we've made so much progress without any federal laws or state laws or any regulations coming in, because we want to be more productive because the output gets better.
You and I have had this conversation before, and of course, our mutual friend, Congressman Garrett Graves, is a big promoter of this, is if you think about the great environmental research and the great environmental breakthroughs and the deployment of these environmental innovations, it is industry that is leading the way in most of these. The government's not going to solve these problems. Quite frankly, environmentalist activist groups are not solving the problems. In most cases, you see that it is industry that is coming up with the new ideas, the new technologies, and deploying those technologies in a significant way. When we talk about protecting the environment, we are all environmentalists, right? We all live here. We all breathe the air. We all drink the water. Your industry has taken the lead. Talk about that specifically in Louisiana, and I know it's something that you're very proud of.
Yeah, I am. You look back over the last 30 years, for example, we've reduced emissions by about 50 to 60%.
Right.
And at the same
time,
production's going up. We've added facilities, and as they come online, they have new technology. Everybody's looking to reduce waste. That's the big thing, because as you reduce waste, you become more productive.
Right, more efficient. Right.
Yeah, and so that's the incentive for the companies, and they've put millions of dollars and billions in some cases in the research on how do we get better, how do we create less waste, and that's what's going to change things. It's not going to be anything else, but that's going to change it.
You know, you can't talk to these major chemical industries today without hearing about their net carbon neutral plans by 2030, by 2050. Some of them are very, very aggressive. You think about the recycling of plastics that a lot of the industry is leading at this point. You think about carbon capture and sequestration, all of these things that industry is leading on. I think it's going to be fun to watch over the next few years as the industry really takes the lead on the environmental side.
I think it will be. It's going to be really exciting to watch it develop. It's exciting for me to listen to some of the conversations that our companies have about what they're doing, how far out in the future they are already, talking about what they can do, what technology is going to do. You take your cell phone, for example. How much has your cell phone changed in the last 5 years? Right. You went from, I don't know about you, but I went from like a flip phone to a phone now that you don't even need to be in your office. You can control all of your email, all of your computer stuff. That's the kind of technology that's going to take to move us forward into this environmental change that we want.
Well, and you think about a product like a cell phone and how many things that the chemical industry produces ends up in those cell phones, the screens, the components, all of those things. You think about refrigerants that change our lives in terms of our ability to keep and preserve food and feed the world. You think about air conditioning, you think about hospitals and all of the things that the chemical industry provides in terms of medicines and life-saving devices. The Louisiana, this country, this world would be very different if it weren't for the quality of life-sustaining products that the industry produces.
No question. And the real thing, important thing about it, Tim, is that not only do we produce them, but we're looking at ways to produce them better, to make the product better, but also to do it in a way that we don't disturb the environment. Minimal impact on the environment. How can we help our people to, because you have to remember, the important resource we have is our people, the ones who work there every day. So you've got to protect them as well, and that's a big thing.
And speaking of that, and we've got about a minute or so left in this segment, I want to dive into this just quickly. One of the things that we've heard for 30 years here, Greg, is this whole idea of Louisiana's, quote, cancer alley. The LCA, along with the Louisiana Tumor Registry, LSU, a lot of different places, put a lot of time and effort into studying the actual facts around cancer in Louisiana. And the truth of the matter is, the highest cancer rates in our state are in Northeast Louisiana, where there is very little industry or no industry. Some of the healthiest people we find are folks who work directly in chemical plants. Talk just briefly about the myth of Cancer Alley.
Well, I think it is a myth. I think people look at it and say, well, it must be something wrong. It's got to be something wrong, but the numbers don't bear that out. And so you have to follow the science, and you talk to the experts. Let them tell you what it is. You're right. The highest cancer risk is up in Northeast Louisiana. They did a study by census tracts. You have more of a risk of catching cancer in the Central Business District in New Orleans than you do anywhere else.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I know, and we'll talk a little bit about this maybe in the last segment as we come back, but part of your goal is to really have your members involved in helping to create healthy communities. So let's come back with that as we come back from break. We're visiting with Greg Bowser. He's the president and CEO of the Louisiana Chemical Association. You're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Growing up in Baton Rouge, I used to always pass up ExxonMobil, but I never thought that I would actually have the opportunity to get on. But what I thought was impossible turned out to be possible. So I just feel like it's just a wonderful opportunity to be able to provide for my family.
We are committed to being a community partner. We are actively working to recruit the talent here in Baton Rouge, and we want to bring them into our workforce. We're ready.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. LCA President and CEO Greg Bowser is my guest. You mentioned as we were going to break, Greg, we were talking about Cancer Alley and this myth that there is a much higher predominance of cancer in the places where the chemical industry exists. And that's been proven to be a myth by the facts and by the research and the science. But nonetheless, I know one of your goals as LCA president is to help your member companies be more engaged in creating healthy communities where they operate. Talk a little bit about your thoughts there.
I just think that, it's one of the things that you do as a good neighbor. We're only as good as the people around us, and our communities are only as good as the ones who live next door to us. That's our community. That's what we are. And I think we have to do, and I'm going to put it on us, we have to do a better job of reaching out to those communities and having them not just share in our success with respect to what we make, but actually give them opportunities. And, I, as a kid growing up in the sugarcane fields in St. Mary Parish, education's a big thing. And you give people opportunities to change their lives. And I think we have the ability to do that because we can do things. We can introduce them to things that they otherwise would not have.
Right.
We have a lot of smart people that work for us. And we have a lot of people in science and technology that you could share that information, share that knowledge with kids in schools, in our communities. And I think we've got to do that. We've got to do a better job than that. Some of our companies do, some don't. It's like anything else. But it's got to become a priority for us.
Right. And I think, because we do my consulting firm does a lot of work in that space. I think you see a real movement for increased engagement in these communities and a real focus on their public license to operate and going out into these communities and building knowledge, building understanding, building trust. And I really applaud a lot of our site leaders for the work that they're doing, because I think we are engaged in the community in a much deeper way today. And I think, as you say, there's a lot more to do, but I think the trend is headed in the right direction.
Absolutely, it's headed in the right direction. We talked earlier about a company that closed the facility, and it was a $26 million hit to the parish. That same company, what they decided to do was, they said, listen, we're right in the middle of your school year, that's going to disrupt everything. We'll pay the tax.
Right.
We're not going to be operating, but we'll pay the tax through the year to give the schools and everybody a chance to make some adjustments. That's the kind of stuff that neighbors do. You want to help the guy next to you.
Right.
And I think you're going to see them doing more of that and engaging their communities more.
It represents being a real partner in that community. Let's shift gears a little bit as we tape here on a Wednesday morning. The legislative session's been underway for a couple of days. One of the things that is most notable about your organization, the Louisiana Chemical Association, is how it protects and defends the interests of the industry at the legislature. You guys have done for a long, long time a very good job with that. A little bit about what you're expecting in this legislative session. I asked the same question to Stephen Wagaspack at LBIS. What is it that you will be playing offense to promote, and where will you be playing defense to protect?
Well, we're looking at some things to deal with. One of the things right now, there's a number of bills to codify, to take the governor's executive order around the ITEP program and put it in the Constitution. I don't think you want to do that. When you look at Louisiana and some of the issues we have, it's because we've put so much into the Constitution and it's so restrictive.
Right.
I think if you're going to put something in the Constitution, you need to at least give as much flexibility as you can.
Right.
And so I think every governor, the next governor, whoever he or she may be, should have that flexibility to do that. And those are the kinds of things that we're going to be looking to do. Some tax changes, you can't do them this year.
Right.
So we won't be doing that. We'll be looking at some regulatory stuff. We'll be talking about some of the climate initiatives that's going to take legislation that we're going to try to, we're going to support some of that. There's a lot of it out there that we can support.
Right.
There's some that we can't. That's going to be the things we're watching for.
Well, let's talk just briefly about that, because you were part of Governor Edwards' Climate Initiative Task Force. I think it had meetings over the course of the last couple of years. It came out with a pretty detailed report here in the last few months. I think there are some of the things, as you mentioned, that the industry fully supports in terms of, the protecting Louisiana's environment. There may be some things there that are a little bit questionable in terms of industry support. Give us a little overview there.
Well, I think the Climate Task Force, you have to look at everything, all aspects of it. And the biggest thing is not to get ahead of technology. not to say we're going to do X and not know how you're going to get there. We have to have a transition plan to get there. And so we want to do that. We want to talk about how do you get there? How do you do it? One of the things that I found amazing coming out of this is that David Dismuth over at the Center for Energy Studies did a study on greenhouse gases and what Louisiana's impact on greenhouse gases is. Louisiana's impact is about 4%.
Right.
And they figure industry is probably half of that. So what that means to me, a layman, is that if you shut down all of industry, you may have a 2% impact on greenhouse gas.
Right.
And so you have to be careful that you don't wreck your economy and not have a real big impact. One of the good things about it, Tim, having industry here is that we're one of the most regulated industries in the world.
Right.
In the United States of America. And what's going to happen is, unless China and all those other places go along, you're going to drive those industries offshore where there's very little regulation. And it's going to make things worse.
Well, not only does it make things worse from an environmental perspective when we don't produce things here in the United States, because as you say, we are the most stringently regulated of industries in the country. And I think that most of the operators in the United States do things the right way. They want to do things the right way. But it's also a national security issue, as we've talked about. We got about 30 seconds left here, Greg. Sort of your message to Louisiana citizens about the chemical industry in their state.
Well, I think they should be proud of the chemical industry in the state. They should be proud of the way we operate. They should be proud of the way we're regulated. And I think that they should be proud of the things that we make and the jobs that we produce. That's big. But not only that, Tim, they should be proud of the fact that we're working hard every day, not to just manufacture and be safe, but to be good neighbors as well.
That's right. And I think that among all of those things, that being a good neighbor, I know how high it ranks on your list. Listen, keep up the good work, man. You have been a great representative of this industry for a long, long time. I'm grateful for your time and your willingness to always come and share a little bit with us.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to be with you and to talk about what's happening in our industry. So we'll appreciate it and look forward to coming back again.
You will. Thank you. That's a wrap, guys. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next week at this very same time for another edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.